So although I've called this lesson pro tips, and these are things I look out for, having done this for over 10 years now, 10 years of experience in web design, these aren't difficult tips to implement. So they'll create a professional feel and finish to your website, but very easy to put in place. So our first tip is a browser icon, and you can find that by navigating to the design section from the sidebar and then browser icon. And this, it's technically called a favicon. It's a tiny little icon, so you can't include something with a high level of detail, but it appears, if you look up at the top left of my browser window, it's a little icon, and on mobile devices that's used when you bookmark websites. It appears as that tiny little icon in the top corner. So quite nice if it's not the default Squarespace block. So I have something perfectly suited for this. I've got a very simple crown icon that takes just the central portion of one of my logo elements. So I'm going to use that as my favicon. So simply drag and drop. So it needs to be a PNG file, but otherwise Squarespace will resize it for you. So I'm going to save. And although it doesn't appear here, if I copy this and open a new incognito window, you can see it appears now, and that looks really smart. Really does have to be a simple icon. In some places, it's an absolutely minuscule space, but it's a nice professional touch. Something else while we're on this tab, so this is the design tab, the lock screen. So you probably noticed as I visited that incognito window, if you sent a prospective client to view the website, perhaps once you're ready to reveal it, this is the page they would see if you've password locked it, and entering the password they'd gain access. Well, this is quite generic. This isn't going to win any design awards, so we can actually create something better without too much trouble. So just a nice professional touch. If we visit the design tab, lock screen, we have a few different layouts we can choose from. So perhaps this one, just to demonstrate this to you. I'll click save. I'll go back. And then if you work your way through these headings, you can customize and style this. So under branding and text, if we wanted, I could include my logo, which I'm going to do. So that's nice. Evoke Brewery. You can add a headline if you wanted, or body text, but I don't think that's needed for me. I'll save, go back into the next menu, which is media. And here really is where we can choose for this particular layout a background image. So again, you're able to search through Squarespace's stock images or the library of images you've uploaded so far. And I quite like this abstract one, just showing beer swirling around in a glass. I think that creates quite a nice effect. And when that's uploaded and done its thing, there we are. So a much more professional lock screen. Only took us a minute or so to put that together. If I now visit and refresh my incognito window, that's going to create a much better first impression when a client comes to log in and excitedly visit their new website. So another pro tip, and perhaps Squarespace won't be very happy I'm saying this, but the tip is to avoid certain design features that have been added to the latest version. So if I click edit mode and I go to add a section, unfortunately, some of the latest options, the latest template Squarespace add seem to appear at the top of this page. And they've become obsessed with this slowly moving text, which I think looks awful from a design standpoint. You can see there's more of them here. Like, what's happening here? It's to me it's really off-putting. Maybe you like it, But my pro tip is to avoid those gimmicky features. I mean, look at this one. Maybe there's someone out there that appreciates that. But to me, although it's clever technically, they've been able to program the capacity to do that, I would avoid this gimmicky moving text. Keep the text, keep the layout static, but if you do want to add a little bit of micro animation, there's a better way to do it, and that's my next pro tip. So if I close that, and we'll come out of edit mode, you absolutely should use micro animation, but use it the right way. I wouldn't have text moving around when someone's trying to read it. So if we go to the home section of our sidebar, visit the design heading, site styles, and you may have noticed this before, but if you haven't, tucked away in here, the third option down is animations. And this applies what, in my opinion, are quite tasteful micro animations to all your elements throughout the website. And the difference is, if I click on the fade option, once the animation has played, your content is then static. So it can be read, it can be enjoyed. It doesn't continue to move. And for me, I think that's quite an important differentiation. So I'm going to change the speed to slow. So it fades in nice and slowly. And you can see as I begin to scroll down the page, our text fades in. And that's just perfect. Nice, subtle animation. If we scroll back up, it doesn't loop again. There are other options too. Scale is quite good if you want it to have a little more impact. Some of the images actually scale into place, so that creates a little more movement. We'll go back up. Slide, it's another tasteful option. So that creates a really nice premium feel as you're navigating the website. And you can experiment with these for yourself, but clip and flex are also quite nice options as well. So what I like about this is all of those options are tasteful, they're not distracting, and they just add a nice professional finish to your website. So my last pro tip is to do with balancing. And when it comes to layouts, as a visitor scrolling through a website, if there's lots of busy sections, too much text, not enough negative space in between, it can feel very cramped and claustrophobic. So try to create a certain tempo. Although Squarespace gives you sections and breaks your content down into sections, try to space out your images. Try to include plenty of negative space around any text sections you have. And try to create a nice gentle flow so that at any point in a visitor scrolling down, there's maybe just one or two things to catch their eye at a time. Try not to have too many different elements competing for attention. So you can see that's the case with this sample site. Any given section they're scrolling through, there's usually just one main heading they're going to notice. There's one element fighting for their attention. On pages where you have a few more elements maybe shown together, like this process page, it's really important to include enough negative space that this doesn't feel overwhelming. You can imagine if this was pressed right up to the edges, if the text took up more of the space, it would feel very, very busy. And where you have a section like this, a busier section, it's nice to either precede it or follow it with some nice, calm, perhaps image-rich sections. Just so that, again, you're creating a nice, gentle tempo. And lastly, just wanted to share with you an example of, this is a site I created for a client of mine, a very talented photographer. And because she's a photographer, there are a few features that I've implemented that weren't appropriate for the brewery, but definitely for certain types of clients, you'd want to put these in place. So you'll notice there's a nice, effective semi-full screen because it takes the header into consideration. Slideshow as you land on the homepage. So that's a really nice effect. And then as you scroll through, tons of negative space, that tempo that we spoke about, to make sure you go from image rich to maybe text rich, and break things up nicely. We've also alternated from dark to light with the sections, which is quite effective. Again, thinking about the tempo as a visitor scrolls through the site. Testimonials. Squarespace has quite a few nice templates and options to display reviews or testimonials if your client has a business where that's going to be important. And a little touch I like to include, if a client's on Google or Trustpilot, it will be to actually include a button that says more reviews on, and then takes the visitor to that platform in a new window. So they can see these aren't just made up, these are actual verified reviews that they can browse through for themselves. If your client has a website where they offer a range of different services that won't all be of interest to a visitor, try to, perhaps before they get to the end of the homepage, press a visitor to make a decision and funnel them towards the content that's relevant for them. And a nice way of doing this, it can be a grid. If you had just 3 options, that would work too. In this case, there's 6 different options. And this grid, it's just enticing a visitor to choose, showing them what they might be looking for. And then if they click through, they'll be taken to the relevant section. And that way, the content they come across on this page is completely relevant to them. So that's quite a necessary technique in web design, trying to think about the flow your visitors might take through the website, and making sure they come across what they're looking for as soon as possible. And understanding not everyone will straight away look at the navigation bar when they land on a website. Some people, they'll just naturally begin to scroll down when they first visit a website. So it's catering to either type of visitor and just making sure you've got something to funnel them to show them what they're looking for.